Crime is
The
just a
reality
concept.
TV star president did all he could to cancel this particular episode. But today, reality is exactly what caught up with Donald Trump as he made the long, ignominious journey through the city that made him to hear the opening arguments in the criminal case against him.
I love when British people cover American news.
Ignominious.
I love it. I don't like it always has like this air of like David Attenborough looking at monkeys vibe. You know what I mean? Because like we are literally monkeys. and of course, as much as I have a lot of smoke for England in general and British people in general, the British accent does always have that air of like elitism.
Now, defendant Trump will be judged by a jury of his Manhattan peers in the first criminal case against a former president in American history. But in true Trump style, he used the moment to attempt to steal the limelight for political gain, not shy away from it.
This is done as election interference. Everybody knows it. I'm here instead of being able to be in Pennsylvania and Georgia and lots of other places campaigning. What's going on right here should never be happening. It's a very, very sad day in America. I can tell you that.
Very
A sad day in his eyes, but a just one for those who say holding Trump to account is long overdue. Ironically, this case centers on Trump's alleged actions to interfere in the 2016 election, just as he's campaigning.
Oh, he's
Lighting
hot.
is crazy.
He's so hot on
face.
this.
To win the next one in November.
In the tale of the porn star, the president, and the payout.
At the heart of the story is an alleged sexual encounter nearly 20 years ago with Stormy Daniels, a former adult film star who claims she had a brief affair with Donald Trump.
Did you want to have sex with him?
No.
She did.
But I didn't say no. I'm not a victim. I'm not.
She did. She's lying.
It was entirely consensual.
Oh, yes.
She says she was paid hush money to keep quiet when she threatened to go public with her story just ahead of the 2016 election. The money was paid by Michael Cohen, Trump's then lawyer, who later admitted to lying about the payments and served time in jail for that and other offences. He'll be the prosecution's star witness in the trial, and if the past is anything to go by, he'll be only too happy to tell the jury who he claims made him do it.
First of all, nothing at the Trump Organization was ever done unless it...
I've gone on his podcast.
Really?
Yeah. It's my mea culpa.
From Mr. Trump.
Fair.
He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters.
I never directed him to do anything.
What is he talking about?
As a 53-year-old adult, I was groomed by Donald Trump to do illegal things in a Discord server. He told me he'd be showing me classified documents later down the line. Who amongst us has not fallen to his beautiful charisma?
His charm.
Anything wrong. Whatever he did on his own. He's a lawyer.
The problem for Donald Trump is that he paid Cohen back in a series of checks that the prosecution alleges were wrongly classified as legal expenses. And it's those payments that are critical to the criminal charges against Trump now. Hush money payments to
What is that?
He's a Black Panther.
He knows that he's being unjustly prosecuted.
He's serving so hard.
This is a political prosecution.
He's serving.
Disgusting.
He's serving. How badly would you have fucking wanted to be on his team? Think about it.
It would be funny.
It would be awesome.
But I could never come back from it. But it would be very funny.
Hit up Dan. Hit up Danny Boy and be like, listen, bro, one last big mission. Okay? Before I hang up the reins.
No, they would. He would,
one last job.
He would blame it all on me when it all went sideways. Just like Huey Newton, they're coming after me.
Yeah. Trump's got a good argument for the classified documents case, like prosecuting a former president for a document crime is actually bullshit. Is saying that the horse crap document classification system can be used against a president just a crap argument.
I think to be honest, I think this is a pretty weak case also.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a weak one. But
and I think
but this isn't even like, there's no criminal. Like there's no real jail time for this. Like,
yeah, well, here's the thing. This is the lowest level felony. This is E-level felony, lowest level felony in New York that they could hit him with.
Yeah.
And just to give you, it's like a useful example, not necessarily for chat, but maybe for your conservative, who's this?
It's,
maybe for
Alina
your
Habba.
conservative family members. they're hitting him with 34 counts of fraud. You know, this is what they do, right? They make it seem, they blow it up to make it seem like it's a bigger deal. Each count is just like a check or like a change in the ledger. That's what all the counts are, right? So it's like every check that was written, that's an individual count. So they're like, we're hitting him with 34 felonies. But the thing that they're not saying is that in order to get to the felony status, they have to get the jury to agree that he did all this shit with the intention of impacting the election. And the thing about that is
there's a good argument for that, though.
I think there's a good argument. Okay, go ahead.
Not to get all MSNBC on your ass right now. If you're like gonna be like Mr. Here's the law to a T in this situation, there certainly is a very solid there's certainly a very solid argument that you can make that he absolutely was not doing this to shelter the truth from, and in former cases they have been able to successfully defend, shelter the truth from his wife.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple instances, like for example, when he says, when he talks about how he doesn't want to pay her until after the election, like where his behavior of routinely trying to not pay people.
His funds were just wrapped up. That's all.
No, he literally says, well, after the election, we don't even have to pay her. So like, let's just wait until after the election, try to hold off. Like that is a very clear indication. Obviously the other part is that like trying to shelter this, like trying to shield your wife from this truth, like, or your family because of you want to save them the embarrassment.
Sure.
That's one thing, but you also like hid the assets. Like you hid the financial transaction in a way with campaign funds.
Yeah,
right?
no,
so like
I
you did not have to do that. There's other ways of trying to hide the truth, not from the public overall, but instead from just like your friends and family, without it becoming like without it becoming something that has like electoral consequence, which is pretty funny because we know about it and it didn't matter.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, that's kind of my thing. Like, if I were on the defense team, right, I think a big thing for this was they were talking about, you know, how much the prosecution is going to try to talk about the Access Hollywood tape and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was out there, if you remember, at this time, right? And it's not like in 2016, this is my thing on the defense side. Sometimes it's useful when you have somebody, in this case, where it's reputational and it kind of hinges on his reputation. Did Donald Trump have a sterling reputation in 2015, 2016? Was he known as like a good, honest, forthright man?
Let's keep watching.
To conceal an affair may sound unsavory, but they're not illegal in the United States. To win a conviction and possible sentence in this case, prosecutors have to prove that Donald Trump paid the money to keep the news of the affair from becoming public and hurting his chances in the upcoming 2016 election. What prosecutors today in court described as a cover-up, an illegal conspiracy, they said, to undermine the integrity of a presidential election. Donald Trump has always denied the affair with Stormy Daniels and claims the hush money was only paid to her to protect his family. In their opening statement today, his lawyers claim the former president was cloaked in innocence and that Stormy Daniels had simply used her story to make money in the run-up to the 2016 election. Even if he's convicted, lawyers say it's unlikely Trump will face jail time, and he could even get a boost in his election campaign.
This is actually a pretty good thing for Donald Trump, if you look at it from his point of view. He comes before the United States of American people, gives a presser every day. He says, this is a witch hunt. They're unfair. They're trying to interfere with my ability to be your president. And he has those themes every single day that he says them on news media and it's broadcast. So does it hurt him? Maybe, but does it help him? I think it's almost a car ride to the White House.
That's Trump's hope for sure.
I think it went very well.
But 6 weeks of this case, not to mention 3 other criminal trials in the wings, could yet derail the dramatic season finale that he's been hoping for. Well, towards the end of the hearing, the prosecution introduced their first witness, a man named David Pecker, who was the owner of the tabloid newspaper,
Pecker's
the
brother.
National Enquirer, and who testified that he paid for stories that painted Trump in a negative light to kill them, what Pecker referred to as checkbook journalism, and that prosecutors will try to portray as part of a scheme, a conspiracy theory to help Donald Trump win the election in 2016. We'll hear more from Pecker tomorrow.
Pecker?
Trump's
Wait,
lawyers,
what?
of course, are claiming that there was nothing criminal at
Wait, what?
all in Trump's conduct. I have a spoiler alert, his lawyer told the jurors. There's nothing wrong, he said, with trying to influence an election. It's called a democracy. The trial is expected to last for about 6 weeks. Even if Trump is convicted, it will not stop him, of course, from running for president. There is no law against that, but it will force voters for the very first time to decide if
that objectively is one of the best parts about America. Like, one of the best rules in America is that, like, you can't run from prison. Like, even if you are a convicted criminal, you can still run for president, which I think
Debs ran from a jail cell. I think that was the biggest, right? The biggest showing ever, like 1 million votes or something.
Yeah, biggest showing ever for a socialist in general, I think, in America.
I have this copy of his speech that he gave at his trial.
Really?
Which is pretty famous. It's like one of my favorite speeches. And I tried to but I didn't want to give you mine because it's like old. And I wasn't going to give it to you because I don't think you have earned that yet.
Wow, that's fucked up. I open my house to you. I get my dad to cook you my meal. I break bread with you, and this is how you repay the kindness.
All right, in due time.
Wow.
In due time.
Dude, no, it's cool, man. It's cool. I'm not upset. Chat might be upset with you, but
no, chat agrees.
I don't think they do.
I want you to be your best self.
Only counts for federal crimes, right? No, I think you can still, even if you're in state prison for a state crime, you can still run for president. Tiger King did that.
Hell yeah.
No, what only counts for federal crimes is that even though it is unprecedented, so much of this is unprecedented, technically Donald Trump could pardon himself, is what like legal experts are currently going back and forth on, only for federal crimes. He can actually pardon himself for state crimes. Different states have different mechanisms for that pardoning process. Some of them, only the governor is allowed to do so. So that's why the Georgia case is actually pretty awesome in general, because it is one that he genuinely cannot pardon himself out of.
To put a criminal defendant, a criminal felon, into the White House.
Thanks, Siobhan. Well, joining us now is Neil Catchell, a law professor who was the acting Solicitor General during the Obama administration. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, no, not this.
Wait, bring up the picture of him at like Coachella or whatever.
Chat, you know the one. Chat, you know the one. Oh, God, I hate this fucking piece of shit so much. There he is. Burning Man, baby.
Oh, he's Burning Man. Yeah, hell yeah.
With this, if you will, because you look at this cast of characters and they're people who either paid hush money, took hush money, paid people for stories, were proven liars. I mean, how would you establish any credibility in your witnesses if you were prosecuting this?
Yeah, I think that the prosecution has a really simple story, and it doesn't just depend on the credibility of witnesses. It depends on tangible evidence, including the checks. It's very hard for Trump to explain what in the world was going on with these checks. It was to the point where Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, took out a home equity loan on his own house, on Michael Cohen's house, in order to pay off Stormy Daniels. Now, I know thousands of lawyers. I've never heard of anything like that. No lawyer does that kind of thing.
Lawyers.
So the idea that this is like Michael.
He should meet some better lawyers.
He doesn't know me. I don't know him. Didn't he do something with like child slavery?
I think he was the one. He was the one who was defending
Nestle or something.
Child slavery. Yeah. The image of Neil Katyal, the Supreme Court attorney who, among other things, successfully defended a company's use of overseas child slave labor. these child slaves, these former child slaves, cannot sue our corporation because we hired outside third-party help, and they are the ones who they outsourced the child slavery through a third party.
That's what all these companies do.
So technically, it doesn't count, and he did that successfully. Cool
King,
guy,
legal king.
cool guy.
Michael Cohen acting on his own or something like that is really difficult. And I think it's the tangible evidence that makes it really hard. Trump could try and tell that story. He could try and get on the stand and say, I didn't do this. It's all Michael Cohen's idea. There are two problems with that. One is, it's just very hard to just tell that story. Why in the world is your lawyer taking out a home equity loan and all of that? But the second is the judge today, before the trial started, in what's known as a Sandoval decision, said if he takes the stand, the prosecutors can ask.
So Sandoval is meant to give notice to a person who's being accused something of everything that they might elicit if they testify. So it's just like the stuff that they want to talk about. And in this case, the stuff they were looking at was, issues of his character, the Access Hollywood tape, stuff like that. They have to give notice of the type of questions they're going to ask if someone's going to testify. Just FYI. Legal.
Okay, nerd.
I'm just telling you. I just want them to know.
No, thank you. That was actually very valuable.
About Eugene Carroll and the verdict against him. They can ask him about the gag order and all the violations and what the judge in that case said about how Trump is not credible. They can ask about the New York Attorney General's fraud investigation, which found that he had inflated his assets.
Yeah.
All of that
so
is
it's not going to happen. I mean, what we know from the defense opening statement is that, that their defense is he didn't know, that this was all Michael Cohen. And, he'd asked his attorney to sort of handle a problem, a perfectly legitimate problem of sort of making somebody go away with false claims. How he did it was up to the lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm a pretty good lawyer. I can't imagine being able to sell that.
He's like, come on, I'm a pretty good lawyer. I defended child slavery successfully.
I killed it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Story to a jury, at least a jury based on planet Earth. But you're absolutely right. That's one defense Trump's lawyer trotted out in the opening statement today. The other is the one that your correspondent just mentioned, which is, hey, I have a spoiler alert. There's nothing wrong with trying to influence an election. It's called democracy. And again, I think Trump's going to have a difficult time with that because the question under the law is how you influence an election. If I bribe people, if I give them $1 million to vote for me, that's influencing an election, but it's illegal every day of the week. And
that is my favorite type of thing that Trump finds himself having to do all the time because he always runs out of options because he's the most incompetent criminal. They always go, Your Honor, I didn't know that was illegal. And if it was, then it shouldn't be. It's great. I feel like that is not a very valid argument to make when you're standing.
Ignorance of the law is not a defense, Hasan.
Yeah, it's but
Very
you're
sadly.
also in, you're currently, there's a jury, okay? You're standing in trial. Obviously, that if that argument worked, you wouldn't be there, right? The grand jury would have fucking tossed it aside.
Yeah. Well, but also, I don't want to give any credit to grand juries, okay? Fuck grand juries.
Yeah. The grand jury would indict a ham sandwich.
Indict a ham's very good. Yeah. That's an old one.
Yeah.
Ham sandwich knows what it did, someone said.
Nobody would call it democracy. Similarly here, if you're influencing the election in a way by taking secret money and a secret catch and kill scheme with a publication, that is not, at least any American election that I've heard of that, comports with the law.
And just briefly, how long do you think this is going to go on?
It's because when the Clintons catch and kill, they actually do murder. Am I right? Clinton crime family.
I think we're talking about 4 to 6 weeks of a trial, in part because of all that documentary evidence that we were talking about earlier.
And then appeals, they can go on for what?
Correct. So the appeals will go on for at least a year or two, possibly even 3. So this is a long, long process. We're still only at the start of it, but today was a very significant day in moving the ball forward on the resolution of Donald Trump's crimes here.